And then some other things started to happen outside of the United States. There's one story in particular I like to tell about a photojournalism student from UC Berkeley who wanted to photograph activism and protests in Egypt. So he decided to travel to Egypt, and he went to Egypt, and he just kept missing all of the protests, kept missing the interesting activism by a few hours. And so he asked his friends in Egypt, how do you guys know, how do you, first of all, how do you organize, and second of all, how do you know where to be? And they said, oh, we're using Twitter. And for us, this was, they're using Twitter in Egypt? We just made it. How do they know about it? And so he gets on Twitter. Sure enough, he's totally plugged into the scene, and he's at the first protest, and he's getting these wonderful photographs. And then something happens. He gets arrested by Egyptian police. He's 18-year-old U.S. student, thrown in the back of a car, doesn't know what to do. They didn't take away his mobile. So the first thing he thinks is, I'll send out a tweet. So he sends out a one-word tweet, and that one word was arrested. And the interesting thing, of course, is that he had told his friends back at college, I'm going to be Twittering, so follow my tweets, which they were. So they received this tweet, along with all his previous tweets, knowing the situation that he was in, understanding the context of it. They were able to act quickly. They called their dean. The dean called a lawyer. The lawyer called the Egyptian consulate. And within 2 hours, this student sent out a second tweet, again one word, freed. And that was something that really jumped out to us, because we thought, now we're creating something that's being used around the world and potentially in very dangerous situations, and maybe we're onto something that's bigger than we thought. And that was only the beginning, because things began to happen all around the world, everywhere, and we couldn't even keep up with the different stories. And I've tried to collect a few of them here, but there are many that I don't even know about. So these illustrations represent different things. On the top left, there was wildfires raging in Southern California. Traditionally very hard to try to track these wildfires. Nobody knows where they're going to go next or what they're going to do. But what was happening was people were Twittering where they saw smoke, where they saw fire, and all these Twitters were coming into one central location. And what happened was the LA Times newspaper website just gave up, and they just put a Twitter feed on the front page, and they said, you know what, this is the best information that we have. An earthquake happened also in Southern California last year that was interesting to me, because the earthquake struck at 11:42 a.m. in the morning. And also at 11:42 a.m. in the morning were the first Twitter updates coming in. So people were Twittering while the ground was shaking. They were Twittering about what book was falling off what shelf, what the cat was doing, what the dog was doing. There was actually a woman who was at her OBGYN getting checked out, and I won't repeat the tweet here, but it was very funny. But what that signaled to me was, we have a 2-year-old company that is, so what happened was, about 9 minutes later, the Associated Press issued a wire saying there's been an earthquake, and and they confirmed it. And what that signaled to me was, we had this information 9 minutes before the AP was even able to confirm it. And so I asked our engineers, how many updates did we receive? And this was long before we started to grow rapidly. How many updates about the earthquake did we receive in those 9 minutes? And we had received almost 4,000 updates, even conservatively estimating 15 words per tweet. We had collected a 50,000-word book, novel-length book, of first-hand experiences about this earthquake in the 9 minutes it took the AP to simply confirm it. So that signaled to me that we're a 2-year-old company. The news wire business is 200 years old, and maybe there is some very interesting complementary relationship we can have, because we have speed and we have information coming in from all around the world, but we don't necessarily have the context and the storytelling and the professionalism that is present in journalism. So there could be a very interesting relationship there, which I'm very excited about. On the right-hand side of the top, there was a fuel shortage in the South, in the United States, in Atlanta, Georgia. And what we saw people doing with Twitter was sharing where you could find fuel. So instead of hoarding fuel and being secret about where fuel was, people were saying, hey, they were using Twitter to say, this is where the fuel is, you should go, and this is where you should fill up your car. And people are helping each other. They were helping each other find the fuel. And then the bottom 3 images represent more geopolitical type events that have been occurring on Twitter. On the far left, something that happened last year around Thanksgiving in the United States. Twitter are part of our search engine that we have that collects every tweet as it comes in real time. One of the things we do also is we analyze every tweet for a certain frequency of words. So if certain words begin to appear more often than other words, we take notice of them. So this being around Thanksgiving in the United States, we saw Turkey, Thanksgiving, Mumbai. And I wondered, why am I seeing Mumbai on here? And I clicked on Mumbai, and of course I see that there are people inside the Taj Hotel talking about the terrorist bombing. They're trapped in their room. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening. So real-time information coming out of the hotel. On the very far left was a revolt that was organized by students in Moldova. And this was just personally funny to me because I arrived at the office and I had a large number of voicemails and emails asking me, Mr. Stone, what is your participation in this revolt in Moldova? How are you involved? And I didn't even know about it. And then in the middle, of course, more recently, the Iranian elections and the protests and the revolts that happened there. Twitter, of course, being part of that, in that we are allowing people to share information that and get that out into the world that otherwise may not have reached people around the world, and therefore getting us all to care more about what's happening there. So all of these things collected together made us realize, a friend of mine asked me one time, what do you hope that people will say about Twitter in 5 years? And it's one of those questions you're sometimes asked and you don't know what the answer is. And I just kind of blurted out that I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter how sophisticated the technology gets, and it doesn't matter how many machines we add to our network. Twitter is not about the triumph of technology. It's about the triumph of humanity. It's about what people are going to do with these very simple tools that we put together. And that's what we want to foster, and that's what we want to encourage. So, jumping into a different realm, something that was very exciting for us early on, a big surprise was that companies, organizations, taking to Twitter very early in a very smart way. They were using Twitter as a kind of a hybrid tool between marketing and customer service, realizing that every opportunity to connect with a customer, whether they're angry or happy, is a great marketing opportunity. So using Twitter's real-time search engine, any company can wait for mentions of their brand name or their company name, and when they see someone talking about them, complaining, having a problem, whatever, they can jump in and they can send them a message. So the top part of this is a company, it's called Best Buy in the United States, a very big consumer electronics company. They have over 700 employees, all on Twitter, all waiting for anyone to ask a question about Best Buy or Best Buy products. And they call it 12 Force. And what they do is they just answer questions about Twitter, and as a result, the customers are very engaged with Twitter. And this is a good example, this is a good sort of use case, is a company engaging, watching for mentions, engaging with Twitter users. One of the earliest examples, the very first examples of Twitter was kind of funny. It was actually a big cable company in the United States called Comcast. There was a very popular blogger in the United States who was angry that his cable went out for the second time in a week. And so he also had a Twitter account, and he mentioned on his Twitter account, my cable is out again. I'm going to write a blog post tomorrow morning that tells the world that Comcast is the worst cable company ever. It's going to be the #1 search result for Google for years to come. I can't wait to do it. Comcast was monitoring for mentions of their brand, and when they saw this, they sent him a message and they said, what seems to be the problem? Maybe we could send a van out to your house. And 20 minutes later, they had his cable fixed, and the next day, the blog post read, Comcast has the best customer service on the planet. So they totally turned that around, and that was an early example.